your life speak? Is it true?
Hi, my name is Reenah, and you may have seen me talking to some prominent women, making some videos and trying to uncover what's been underneath this spiritual seeking for over 30 years. And I've had the good fortune of traveling and living in Southeast Asia this season and just getting a completely different take on life. And in the West, we seem to have so much investment or belief in the effectiveness of negativity and struggle. And here I am in these nations where there's been so much struggle. I've travelled to Laos and been reading a lot about Burma, and particularly in Laos, where they've had the most bombed country in the world, and yet they're so open, you know, like no barriers, just very innocent. And it's something in their perception, in their take, in their belief structure that's just so different to what we've taken on. It's like you'd think with what they've gone through and what some of them are still going through now, that the abuse would be heavier, but somehow they have a real lightness in the way they get about things. And today I'm going to talk with Canela Michelle Meyers. Hello, Canela.
Hello, Reenah.
Hi.
Hi.
We've talked a bit previously, and we both discovered that we have experienced similar things, as in abuse, shall we say. And so what's the difference between a hard life and a thought about a hard life?
You know, I could speak about how I support people, and as I've supported myself, it's exactly the same way. But people seem to get fixated on what happened as a scenario, and that keeps going on and on, repeating itself with the person, and that keeps the trespasser trespassing in a way. It doesn't. It's a kind of a cycle that gives the energy to the perpetrator, rather than bringing any kind of harmony to the person that these trespasses happened against.
So part of the process, like after, shall we say, the act has happened, has a lot to do with our own self-talk, what we tell ourselves about the situation and the meaning that we give to what happened is really where a lot of the pain begins, right?
I totally agree. Yes, and of course, so much of these happenings happen when a person is a child, and they have no way of actually making a logical response or reaction to what happens. They're just children. And so often they take these happenings against themselves and then believe in it, as if there's something flawed or wrong in them because this happened, that they somehow caused it.
Yes, I can certainly relate to that too, you know, and it's not until we see that it's the thought that it keeps perpetrating this, you know, and believing in that the situations around us begin to shift.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I like to say that when a person becomes more able to be with whatever it was that occurred, Usually they're a little older because a child is mostly just coping, getting through the moments the best they can, surviving. But later, as we look at the reality of living, we can start to open up to these. It's perfect because the thoughts and the story can lead us to exactly where the energy is stored within ourselves, because we're never going to be able to find how in the world we stored it as a child with our adult mind. So a lot of the beliefs that attaches the incident in keeps it sort of alive or in the way, in disharmony in the person's life, is these subconscious beliefs that occurred when it happened, how the child managed to somehow make some sort of sense that usually isn't sensical.
That's what we call the access point. When you see that, it's like that access point, and when we get to that access point, we're aware that there's choice, and a choice not to move with that story.
Yes, but to utilize the story to bring up, sort of to get the dust of the energy worked up. We can use that and use our feelings about it to connect in to where the energy has gotten caught in the system. And I actually like to say it's like opening a gift that you yourself as a child have tucked away. And then when we open to it, it is very much a present, a gift that you cannot know until you open to the energy of it.
It is like a gift, isn't it? When you feel that, when you notice it in your body, and you're no more just running with that thought and running with the story, but you actually stop to allow the feeling to come up and feel it there and allow it to be there in the body.
People avoid that because, of course, this scenario is one of some sort of violent experience, and so people will, it makes sense that they would attempt to avoid that and keep away and try and avoid the whole aspect of it and keep it in a way about the perpetrator and about the violence. Oh, my mother did this to me, my father did that to me, and keep it like that, because it keeps it sort of at a surface level. Because to actually allow oneself to feel is actually allowing the energy that happened at the moment of the trespass. And so that's going to be, you want to be an adult and be able to breathe and be here in your body, safe, feeling, your chair or whatever, and then allowing yourself to release the experience now when you can actually handle it as an adult.
So, some people might be sitting here watching this, particularly some people who've had some extreme violence or some extreme violent act happen in their life. And I mean, I know you and I, Canela, we've both, without getting into our stories, had some wild encounters. Like some people might say, yes, but I was raped repeatedly, or someone tried to murder me. I was in hospital for so long, and somehow we managed to find the light at the end of the tunnel. So what's the turning point? How can we verbalize the turning point of this?
Well, for myself and how I support other people when I'm with them to explore such energies, it's about when the person's had enough of being a victim, because as long as the energy is going to blaming someone for what happened, then victimhood will be what's happening. And as a victim, that means you can't. It keeps you a victim. Whereas at some point you'll want to no longer have these energies or this story looming and weighing on you. And at that point, you can, there's lots of ways to open to the energy. But the first part is that you've had enough. You've had enough of being a victim, and you want to heal and bring harmony to the energy that you are as an expression of awareness in each moment.
So when you're aware that, or when you're aware that you are a victim, because I know at some point I wasn't even aware that I was a victim.
Exactly. I was just a regular way. I never knew.
No, it's like one has to come to the realization that they're a victim, and how do we know that we're a victim? Well, I guess we could say it will be those constant negative stories that repeat themselves, right? And the contractions that what's the word? Assist them, that support them, that come along with them.
Yeah, or their fear when they're getting into a relationship and they keep wondering, well, what is it that I keep turning away from this relationship? And it'll be that energy that's lodged in the system, just waiting to be embraced, acknowledged. So yeah, this stuff, it'll just get in the way until finally the person turns around to be with the truth of what. But like you said, at first, as a child, certainly, it just never occurred to me to ask other children what they were experiencing. Nor did I think, it was happening with everybody either. It's more like I was just dealing with it, and that was enough. I didn't think, it just never occurred to me to wonder whether other people were having experiences. They were just what was happening.
And that's it, because it's just what's happening, and we don't realize we have choice. It's just not something that's pointed out to us or part of our conditioning, if you like, to have a choice to really shift a situation. We just believe that we need to endure what is here and just get through this and just get through this and then I'll be right.
Right. Yeah, and that's then not a very safe feeling life to attempt to just be coping and making it through and trying to survive whatever comes next.
I know we both have so much to share on this.
What you were saying earlier about people comparing and making their story bigger and how they were more hurt than the next person and all that stuff. That can definitely perpetuate the disharmony, because we can't really compare that, because somebody saying something mean towards a young child might hurt them just as much because of their sensitivities, or we don't know unless we're them how painful it actually is. Whereas the next person, it takes a backhand across the face, which really doesn't feel like, it's not all that painful, but there's an effect depending on who it was that hit you.
But yet
the story really, yeah, no, because it's like, I know that people have said to me, "Oh, you're so sensitive. How can I help that?" And what is sensitivity? Is it even, because other people have stuff happen, and if they're better at coping with it, does that mean they're stronger? Right? I don't know. Or are they more removed from themselves? I don't know. That's where there's no way to compare happenings. Either it causes some disharmony in your life or it doesn't. And if there's any feeling of trespass, those are the keys.
Well, it's also, it's really what we tell ourselves. This is what I've uncovered. It really is what I tell myself about the situation, like the beliefs that I formed around, say, the abusive childhood. I mean, the abuse for me started as a child, and actually I think I told you the birth was really quite something within itself, and that was the best part, you know, that it just got worse from there. And then there was the abuse, and then as a child, and then attracting that as a teenager, and that continual abuse. But really, I just really believed that I was worthless, and I believed I had formed all these beliefs, and that's what I guess the differences in the sensitivities are. They really are what I'm telling myself about the situation, what I'm somehow unconsciously believing.
As a child, too. Yeah.
Yeah, as a child, what I'm unconsciously choosing to believe, and then I consciously choose to take on. Well, you know, no, I can't do this because of that, and you know, just you know, the attention, you know, just
Yeah.
goes like this.
I can't, right? It
Yeah,
keeps up. It's where we don't step out and be ourselves because, oh no, I can't do that, or you know, whatever. But it's how we limit ourselves, and we've learned how to do that by however it was we are, like you say, our take on what happened. And for myself, it's like you know, I must have been disgusting and horrible, right? And unwanted, a bad thing. I was just a bad thing. I mean, I was raised Christian, and boy, oh boy, I mean, for sure I was a sinner because all this stuff was happening. I was really bad, and I didn't understand what it was that I did that was wrong. All I knew is that I was wrong because I was being punished, and it felt, you know, it felt like life was punishing me at some, you know, in some moments. It didn't really even have a particular flavor of a person, which, you know.
I don't want to downplay any of this in the sense that, you know, or be numb to any of it. You know, there is no doubt that when an experience like this arises, you know, as a child or as an adult, that the system, I guess the way it chooses to deal with it is by exiting a lot of the time, right? It does take some time to assimilate that,
Absolutely.
you know, and
There's all the time in the world, right? There's this moment. And so there's no rush on this. It's perfectly your way in some sort of gentle and tender way, because that's the opposite of the violence. You know, some way that you can then, it's almost reparenting yourself, isn't it? That you take this child that you are inside and coax her out and listen to her and see, okay, what does she really want in this moment? And when that isn't what's occurring, that will help to find where we block ourselves. And then you get to unravel the block itself. And there's no mental thing that you can use beforehand. It's always energetic. It's scary. It's facing the unknown because you can't think it beforehand. All you can do is relax the body, open and feel it, and let yourself and trust yourself to go through it. Which is so funny because really it's already in you. You've been dealing with it over and over and over again. And so it keeps on calling. You know, it'll keep calling the same sort of information, the same sort of happenings in the details to magnify that there's disharmony. Like what you were saying, that we bring on all sorts of happenings that seem to put another layer on our story, on how tough it is, how much of a victim we are, or how bad it was. And it is, you know. But we can change that around. We can let go of the victimhood. That's true, isn't it? Because you and you're standing there. We're talking about direct experience here because this is what you have done for yourself, and certainly this is what I have done for myself so far. Because it's not. I don't know when it's going to actually be the bottom.
And it's really interesting what you were saying about, you know, how you were raised a Christian and, you know, believing you're a sinner and believing you're bad. Let me share a little about these Buddhist places I've been visiting. Like there's a lady called Suu Kyi. She's the heart and leader of Burma. Many people know her. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. And she's all about non-violence, and a lot of people are aware that Burma's just opened up to the world now, and they've just gone through a very heavy period. And in order to get their independence, like she was under house arrest for 15 years, and many other people were even in jail, imprisoned, and some of them were tortured. She wasn't. And they never viewed it as an imprisonment, and nor did they view it as victimhood. They really somehow understood about the pasting of meanings onto situations. They really believed in the non-violent way, and she says that you can't fear who you don't hate. So, and I can really relate to this with my direct experience, because the minute I dropped hate or I drop blame, the fear just dissipates.
Well, first it's good to find the hate, because a lot of people won't even admit that they're hating, that hating is happening. And if you're human, there's going to be hatred. There's like whatever it is, whether it's because, I don't know, you're mad at the dog because he pooped on the rug and you react towards the dog violently, right? Where your anger rises up and you lash that out on the animal. That's violence, rather than, you know, obviously the dog didn't mean to do that. It didn't think in its head, oh, I'm going to go do this and do this against you. It's just a dog being a dog. Oh, yeah. But yeah, basically the children are totally innocent, and so what the violence seems to do is twist that innocence, and then we can turn around and sort of reclaim our innocence by allowing ourselves to feel whatever it was that happened.
So isn't hate the belief in negativity and the effectiveness of negativity? Like, for example, you know, I mean, that whole struggle is part of it. Like, say, in the United States and Canada, there's a belief to fight for freedom, that you can like push and shove and, you know, go into another country and, you know, and just, you know, fight for freedom, that freedom is a struggle. And as spiritual seekers, many of us say, well, yep, you got to suffer a bit to get to enlightenment. You know, there's that belief in struggle. Whereas there really, too.
It's to the suffering itself that allows the lightening experience, right? Because the suffering is what feels heavy, and it's opening to the suffering that already is, rather than, you know what I mean, the no pain, no gain type of thing. I mean, because you can look at it, right? And it looks painful.
Well, there's there's a fine line, isn't there? Because I'm totally into allowing what is to be there, and that's the only way I can do what I call a true inquiry, is by feeling what's there, feeling it in the body, in the system, and then inquiring into the truth of that, if you like. If needed to be, because sometimes I don't need to inquire at all, you know, and mind doesn't need to inquire. But then there's the suffering that's there, that is there because of belief that you just keep running and running and saying, oh, well, yeah, I'm meant to feel this suffering because at the end of it I'm going to get something out of it. You know, and so, I mean, I remember like years ago that I would be in this pain and I would go, oh, well, yeah, you know, I'm meant to be feeling this pain and I'm just, you know, going to get really light at the end of it. So, you know, there's a fine line between resignation and really meeting something in the body, really meeting it, the truth in the body, and then finding the word to it, so that the word means something. so many times we use our words and we speak, and our words mean nothing.
If a person has experienced whatever it is and then speaks of it, there's a totally different feel to the words, right? Like, you know, I don't know, is there really anybody who hasn't experienced violence in their life? I mean, I don't know, right? Is there somebody who's never had any kind of trespass? I don't know. Likely everyone has, and that might be what that whole Catholic idea of what being a sinner, you know, possibly came from. Because if everybody's felt some sort of violence, well, then maybe everybody has also trespassed against others. And certainly, I know I have trespassed against myself many times. So there's an idea of a sinner, but, you know, is it happening ongoingly? No. It's just in a moment. And like you say, opening up to that and not giving up to it, like, yes, surrendering, but not that you go below it. Like you say, there sort of seems to be that line where it's allowing and staying with, and I find breathing really helps that while it's emerging, right? Breathing deeply, remembering, feeling my body being supported by the chair or a bed, or, you know, if there's somebody present with me, because often it's in my relationship that at the surface, like the tip of the iceberg, will be touched and twang by some happening with my partner, you know, with my husband. And so then I get the opportunity to either say, oh, quit doing that, or trying to change those surface details, or I can say, wow, I'm feeling something right now. I'm feeling like I want to move away from him. I feel like I want to change him. And as soon as I can find that that's present, to stop in that very moment, and I just tell the other person, okay, something's up, and then breathe and open to it just gently, and feel it. Let the energy be felt, whatever it is, because the beliefs will always be after the belief. Finding the belief system will be after, right? Because it's like that whole thing that seems to be out there where, oh, you are worthy, just feel worthy. Well, it's one thing to say, I am worthy. It's another thing to feel I am worthy. In order to feel I am worthy, you'll need to let yourself feel what unworthy feels like, instead of avoiding it. It's quite interesting how when we're speaking, right, it's like there's a third party of people listening, even though right now it's just you and I. And I'm really aware that that's here too. And of course it will call the words through us for whoever, you know, whatever, to support people appropriately, and I trust that. But it's just quite tangible, this third party of listeners.
And this is one of my reasons for doing this, you know, because I've said this many times in my talks to people I talk to. If we just met over the dinner table, I could personally go into such a deep conversation, but there's so much. The first half hour for me is really just dealing with, I don't know what you call it, self-talk that's coming up. Oh, what you're saying is, you know, you could be saying it differently, or, you know, all this sort of thing. But just finding my relaxation for me. And that's why I enjoy the challenge, to just sort of really be here natural. It's probably in some ways maybe even scarier than like doing a satsang where you got people in front of you, you know.
The unknown.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because we don't know who's going to listen to this.
No, and some people are going to like it, and some people are not going to like it, and, you know, but, you know, none of that matters in the end. But
well, in a way it does matter, at least to me it does, because I find that there's a caring. I care about, you know, and it's harder with an intangible general population to support people, you know, because I have no nothing to pinpoint to work with them with, because it's like just an openness. So in that way, it's different. But yeah, I guess it matters. It does matter to me. And I wouldn't be, I guess I wouldn't be doing this, I imagine you either, because certainly my intention is to, like when we spoke earlier, to speak about topics that in non-duality realms, you know, they aren't really, they're being open to a lot more now. I certainly see it a lot more now. But that this stuff, these dance of details of victimhood, of perpetrator, of violence, of rape, of all this, you know, it is part of non-duality as well. It you know, non-duality means oneness, and it's got to include all that is, or it's not non-duality. So what I love is we're actually speaking about, you know, the little bit more nitty-gritty parts of the expression of awareness that is part of our experience as a human being, and many people, that's part of their experience as being human. This, even if we are just particles vibrating, right?
And what about shame? You know, isn't shame a really big one when, you know, in violence and violent acts, and even in non-violent acts, you know, even just a verbal abuse, you know, some people feel very ashamed when they've been abused.
I guess so. I know once that I accidentally took some earrings out of a store. My girlfriends were going off. We were in a mall and on our lunch break, you know, high school, and I was looking at some earrings, and everybody just kind of took off, and I had been looking at some, and I had one pair that was in my palm, and I walked out, and I had them in my hand, and I was outside the store, and I felt horrible shame. I felt terrible. I felt absolutely terrible. And I guess that is similar to the feeling of that you feel dirty when you're, for myself, particularly sexually abused. And maybe that's why they call, you know, smut, you know, speaking dirty and stuff, because there is something kind of dirty around the misuse of sexual energy, where it is, you know, played out in inappropriate, twisted ways.
You know, when we get to the point of saying, acting out, shall we say, in relationships, and I say, oh, well, that's because of the past that I had, or, you know, putting blame on a past. If we get to that point that we know that we had a certain past that contributes to behavior that we act out and we believe in, then I know personally that that's resignation at that point.
I call it an invitation.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, an invitation. That's nice, right.
Yeah. Resignation would be that you're stuck with how things are, right? That you're always going to be this way because of what happened to you, right? And that's just not true. You aren't going to be that way. In fact, you're always changing in every moment. But I count them as actual invitations, that it's no longer past. These stories that look like they happened in the past, if they've shown up in some way in your present moments, they've become present and part of what's actually occurring in the moment. And so that's why I call them an invitation, because then we can open up to them as an invitation. And that's the world attempting to find harmony, awareness, looking for harmony for it in its own self. It'll repeat the story again and again and again until we open up to it. We've had enough of the story, and hear it as the invitation that it is. And receive the gift, whatever that is. So it's beautiful, like what you say, if there's all of a sudden you feel like you're resigned to this, that's the moment. As soon as a person can actually see, I feel resigned right now, there's no way out of this. Perfect. Feel that.
So first, we have to admit that we're a victim. It's sort of like the 12 step, isn't it, where they firstly have to admit that they're an alcoholic or a drug addict. And once we sort of admit that or recognize that that we are a victim, then what sort of steps can we take from there? Let's go a bit more further into that.
Well, if there's incidences that feel hurtful when a person remembers them today, incidences with the parents or whatever, that they feel hurt in remembering how they were treated as a child, instead of like that, the resignation, to when the story arrives and the hurt of it, to open to the hurt itself, to breathe and let yourself feel the actual hurt, instead of just keeping the lid on it by saying, oh, it's their fault, this hurt is here. Because if the hurt is with the person, that makes it theirs. It makes it the person who's experiencing it. And to be responsible, in other words, able to respond to the moment, you can open to it and feel the hurt. And I know I say this quite lightly, and it's not that easy to open to pain. But that is the opening to what happened as a child, to allowing yourself to finally experience the pain of it now, in order to find harmony, in order to release the energy, recognize the energy becomes embodied, and then you carry on into, whatever's happening next. Or what about you? How have you found your way through and with? How have you recognized, when you've recognized victimhood?
Well, initially it was, I would feel the pain. I mean, I feel like I felt so much pain, and I sort of wondered, how much pain do I need to feel? I've always been a feeler, a very deep feeler, and not too afraid to open through pain. And what really shifted for me was the story with it. It was one thing to feel the pain, and for some people it just seems to dissipate, or I've heard stories where people just feel the pain and the whole thing just shifts. But for me, it involved formulating a new dialogue, if you like, in a new story that I told myself. I mean, often people say remove the story and who would you be? Well, being human, we're always in a story of some sort, so we may as well create a good story, right? A good, open, feeling story. And so it was, it was just opening through the feelings, and also in that process restoring the situation.
Yes, that's true. That's also, what I have found as well, that it's feeling the pain to a point where you can get what it's about, and then tending to yourself. How can you now bring harmony to yourself? How can you treat yourself now? At least that's what I have done, is how can I bring harmony if, it's hard to pinpoint a particular feeling.
And also realizing that it's safe to feel the pain and move on with my life, that I wouldn't have to isolate myself, or wouldn't say, oh no, I can't do this today because I'm in so much pain. I realized too that it's okay to be in any space and any feeling, and to even feel sensitive, really sensitive, because I'm a very sensitive person,
Vulnerable. Yeah,
and
vulnerable.
to go out and vulnerable, and not to hide my vulnerability, and not to hide this, you know, sensitivity, and just to go out into my daily life, if you like, you know, of what that
Yes.
was at the time, whether it be parenting or whether it be, you know, working
Yeah.
or going out and meeting people, and not feeling like just meeting people in the open space of good feeling, but meeting people in my, as I am, as it shows up,
Yes.
but without a belief in the in the story of it, but just knowing, recognizing that it's there, and, you know, and honoring it by allowing it to be there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because it's when we're authentically cranky, authentically in pain, authentically feeling sadness. I mean, that's more true, right? And it's scary for other people. I definitely know that, as I'm sure you found out too, that it's very threatening to be around other people and have, you know, people turn away and they try to escape. Actually, it looks like. And sometimes I find that I'm saying, you know, it's okay. It's just what's happening. I'm okay with this. It's the resistance to it that makes it difficult.
We're also conditioned to fix it, you know, like when someone, I always used to think it was almost impolite to turn up somewhere and not feel happy, or that if I was sort of feeling low energy and if I attended a group, that I would be responsible for bringing the group down because I was low energy. But so often I hear people saying, and healers saying, I'm really sensitive to energy and I have to be careful when I go to certain places not to take on someone else's energy. And, you know, I hear that a lot, and I used to really believe that I would have that effect on people, that, oh, if I'm feeling low, I'm going to affect their energy. But you know what, I realized I'm not responsible for, you know, if I'm really in my truth and my authenticity, I'm not responsible for whether they're going to choose to go on a
Well, the fact is that if you're feeling low, no matter where you are, it's going to affect all that is anyway. Proximity, you know, it might be a little more obvious and people might get whatever, I don't know. But if something's happening with any person, it's already being tasted by awareness in its wholeness, in its oneness. It's already having its effect because it's happening. So it's kind of funny that we then hold ourselves away. And there is an effect in being in proximity. I mean, definitely I found that when I was in India and I was by myself. There was a difference, you know, in being there in a different culture, being female, being, you know, it really showed up. All of sort of what I am as this particular depiction of awareness and expression that remains, it repeats itself, that there's white skin, that there's, you know, that I'm a woman, that the Canadian-ishness, you know, it happened when I was born, and it's with this system, whether I like it or not. And so I'm finding that I like it a lot, which is handy. I'm thankful for that. But it really had all these different parts of what's here and real show up. So, you know, I do understand people who say, well, you know what, I don't want to be in the group because I get so affected. I find it harder to balance with that much more information that's coming in, because that's what the truth is. When we're in a room by ourselves, I mean, we're with ourselves and what the room is. I mean, we can open up to allowing the information of whatever we choose to come in. But when we're actually in a train station in New Delhi, right, there's all that energy that's happening, and there is a grand amount that comes through.
The thing that comes up for me is you know, like when a person, shall we say, who's not feeling so great comes into the group, and then we say that person's energy is affecting the group, you know, once again, I'm going to talk about that fine line. There's a fine line to numbing off. I'm afraid sometimes that we numb off to a part of the world where our brothers and sisters are just suffering every day. I'm in a different part of the world where, you know, there's just like so many minority, indigenous tribes and people and living situations, and a lot of people in the West may not want to be around some of their energies because they may feel their energies brought down. They just don't, you know, some of them are really free and very innocent.
Well, the funny part is that we're receiving all that is anyway. It's our resistance to it. If we have an idea that this is affecting us adversely, you know, if you can't let go of that idea and just let the energy fall through you, you know, and then also take care of yourself as a human being, and maybe, you know, get yourself to a room or whatever so you can rebalance, say, on your own before coming back out. But it's us trying to stop or protect ourselves that costs us the energy.
Okay, so I sometimes I like playing devil's advocate, okay? So, you know, when we're in a room, are we really balanced always? Like I know sometimes when I come to my own space, and in Asia that's not always easy because it's very crowded around here and the rooms are very small, but are we really balanced, or sometimes are we just in fantasy and we tell ourselves, right, nothing touching me and I'm fine?
I mean, for myself, I don't like a television going on in the room. If I'm listening more deeply to myself, I can't close away from the information, from the sound of that, and it's just a whole lot of information. So having that off is a help. You know, there's probably billions of TVs all going at the same time, so the information is actually there. But proximity does seem to have an effect, just like the proximity to the sun. Like you get to be in a closer proximity to the sun right now, so there's actually heat in Thailand, and you get to wear right. Whereas I am not in close proximity. You know, there's clouds in between that is pouring rain, and so there is an effect here. Of cool or hot, and so it would be, because in satsang that's actually what, you know, is really a support to people. It's not sort of me personally, it's more that there's an openness here, that I'm open to what's happening to such a great degree that people open to themselves, and so there's that effect as well. And so there is an effect, and you know, it's each person's individual way in how to take care of themselves. And I meant to regroup to integrate the information, like when I was in the New Delhi train station, then to spend some time where I could just be with the physical system here and let the energy fall through me before carrying on into another big group, right? So I've learned, because of the sensitivities of this system, that can handle quite a bit of information, that I need to take care of myself by spending some time letting the integration happen, or even it happens naturally, really. But also I'm aware of what might be happening, so I go with it a little more readily, rather than attempt to stay out there because I should be okay, or whatever it is I might tell myself, right? To get a little more real with myself and say, oh, come on, Canela, what's really going on? Well, you just need to go and lie down and just have a little bit of privacy right now. Really, that's what would be lovely. And to treat myself accordingly, you know? But you're right, it's that fine line again of where we make up a story of what we have to have this, and we can't do that. And really, again, that speaks of victimhood, right? Can't, have to. You know, that life has to be a certain way, and that's just not not true. And living like that, of course, will just mean the person has a difficult life.
Is it true? It's in the poetry of space and time.